Aloha, my kako. Welcome. The idea of romantasy is so attractive to me. You mean I get to have the best of all of my romance books and the best of all of my fantasy books combined in one book? Yes, sign me up. But I have to say, my track record with romantasy has actually been pretty bad. I think there's only been one series I actually liked out of all the romantasy books I read, and that was A Court of Thorns and Roses. A hot take, I know. But that series really got me into reading as an adult. It reminded me of the magic and the excitement I felt like when I was a middle schooler. But there is one book that my friends have been shoving down my throat for months. They even bought me the book for Christmas just so I would read it. I've seen it everywhere online. Some of my favorite booktubers actually love this book, and of course I'm talking about Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Now, I tried to do a reading vlog while I was reading this book, but turns out I'm really bad at it. And I didn't want to sit down and do a review like the other 20 million people on this website. And I was struggling, like, how can I incorporate this book into some of my videos? I want to talk about it so badly, but it just doesn't seem to fit in any of my content ideas. Then I went on Goodreads and realized this is my most annotated book out of everything I've read ever. So let's recap and review Powerless via my Kindle notes and annotations. To be honest with you guys, I'm scared. I have not looked at any of these quotes. I don't remember anything I wrote down. Okay, before we get into it though, let's do a really quick recap for those who may need it. So this book is based in a world where there's this big plague, and yeah, people are gonna die.
It's just terrible, but like, inevitable?
And if you survived this plague, odds are you developed a power, some sort of like magical ability. But there were a handful of people who did survive the plague that didn't develop anything, and those people are referred to as ordinaries. They're disease-ridden, they're gonna bring everyone down, they're a threat, which like honestly doesn't really make sense to me because if everyone has powers, then no one is super. That was an insane reference I just pulled.
Oh, come on! You gotta admit this is cool!
God, that movie's good. Anyways, the society's based around these powers, so if you have a power that's deemed strong or powerful, you're treated better in society, and if not, then you're kind of just like getting the lower end of the stick. So in this world, we follow our two main characters, Peyton and Kai. Peyton is actually an ordinary, and her father was murdered because he was an ordinary. So she lives out her life with her best friend, Adina, in the slums. They basically just like steal and thieve to survive.
'Cause I'm a thief, but you're just a cute little girl, and I'm a thief.
Peyton has been disguising herself as someone with a really low level power. She's like a psychic, and she does this by basically just picking people apart, noticing details about them, and kind of making assumptions about their life. And usually she's right because she's pretty smart. So she's been flying under the radar this whole time. Kai is on the other side of that spectrum. He is the king's son. He is the youngest son out of the two of them, so he's not gonna be ushered to the throne. Instead, he's put on the path to become the future enforcer, which is basically like the police chief out of everybody. His job is to eradicate the ordinaries. So he was trained from a really young age to murder people. So one day they're out thieving and she sees this really hot, handsome guy who's dressed really well. So she's assuming he's rich and she decides to try to steal from him. She totally successfully does. Then later sees that he's getting totally beaten up and decides to save his life. And of course, this hot, handsome, rich man is Prince Kai. And then they instantly fall in love, of course. Now, within this world, there are these trials. There are 3 trials per, like, cycle, which happens every 5 years. And I'm gonna be so honest with you, I don't really know what the purpose of the trials are. People either volunteer to be a part of the trials or are nominated by the community to be in those trials. And the whole idea is it's supposed to, like, remind everybody about the plague and the privileges they have and why the ordinaries suck and whatever. It's very much exactly like the Hunger Games. So because Peyton saves Kai's life, she's actually nominated by the community to participate in these trials. And Kai, being the future enforcer, is kind of like forced to do these trials to like prove to the world that he's like really powerful and strong and like not to be messed with. And of course, that's how their love story blossoms, through training, through the trials. An underlying plot of this book, though, is the revolution. There are a bunch of ordinaries that have been hiding and have been kind of infiltrating the kingdom. Yeah, they just kind of want to dismantle the monarchy and like prove to people that they're not dangerous and like they shouldn't be killed. So yeah, a lot going on. We'll get into a lot of my thoughts about this book as we go through my notes, but just a few really quick overarching things that I'd like to talk about. This book is insane. It reads like supernatural, okay? Every single chapter, there's a recap at the top. There's so much convenience that happens within this book. Like, The world keeps rebuilding and changing as you read the book just to like introduce new powers or new people that actually help further the story along. Just like in Supernatural, I mean, how many times can these guys die and get brought back to life? You know what I'm saying?
Hola, mis amigos.
Now, a huge part of this book is the love triangle between Peyton, Kai, and his brother Kit, but you automatically know that Kit is completely out of the running because he doesn't have a POV, which makes the love triangle like not exciting at all. Like I said earlier, I have no idea what these trials are for, and from what I understand, you understand more about the trials in later books, but like for such a huge plot point, shouldn't I know why there are these trials in the first place? Like, why is that not in the first book of the series? Like I said, there was a lot going on in this book. I think the whole resistance plot should have happened in the second book. I mean, that's why the Hunger Games series is so good, because it's paced out so well. This book definitely feels like a teenager wrote Hunger Games fanfiction, but like I'm not hating on that. I had a lot of fun reading this book, but it's kind of a disappointment because the idea of this is so cool. It feels like a really big missed opportunity. Okay, Peyton is very much like female main character, very badass, like nothing can hurt her. Like, okay. All right, I've seen that a million times. And something that always confused me is like, if she was gonna pretend to be a sidekick, why didn't she just con people? I mean, why not set up a little shop? Tell people what their future is. People make a full living off of that stuff here in LA.
Capricorn, Cancer, Spices, Scorpio. What's going on there, mamas? What's happening there? You tell me.
Thieving and stealing from people just seems like so much more work, but like, all right, girl. Fine, whatever. Sometimes I really loved Peyton's character, sometimes I really hated her. Kai. Oh my god, I hate that name. I hate the name Kai. I don't know if it's because I'm Hawaiian and from Hawaii, but like it's so weird when non-Hawaiian people are named Hawaiian words. I mean, I guess later you find out his name is Malachi, but is that any better? I don't think so. But he is really hot, and his scenes are fun to read when you're picturing the right guy. Sometimes for me, that was Rob Roush. But hey, it got me through it, and it was a lot of fun, okay? And you know, they talk a lot about this guy being a ruthless killer, but he doesn't really kill anybody the whole time. I think it's because if you saw how bad he was, he wouldn't be morally gray and you like wouldn't want to root for him anymore. But still, it's a lot of bark and not a lot of bite. Let me stop there. I feel like we're gonna get into a lot more detail as we get on with this video. Oh my god, I'm so nervous. I literally have no idea what's gonna happen in this video. Okay guys, let's lock in. Let's just do it, okay? We're gonna start at page 46, my very first highlight. Oh god, it was a Kai chapter. So that's already not off to a good start. Okay, this is when Kai and Peyton first meet, and I highlighted, she laughs. The sound warm yet sharp, playful yet pained, as though happiness isn't habitual for her. Oh my god. I wrote, yes. Yes. Perfect. Nothing could have prepared me for this book as much as this sentence did. As though happiness isn't habitual for her. You got that from her laugh? On the same page, I also highlighted the first use of the word darling. No! 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 Like, you're calling her darling right off the bat. Like, no one... Like, I don't... And you, like, just met her, like... Ugh. All right, page 47. I run a hand over my face, realizing I've been staring at her for far too long. Right. Of course, you just met her and now you're obsessed, right? Of course. Oh, okay, so this is where it begins. On this same page, I highlighted, this day just keeps on getting better and better. It's italicized. Lauren loves to do this. She loves to put little quips in italics after something happens, which is just kind of like a little like one-liner the characters get to drop, and it drives me absolutely crazy. I hate this. I wrote, it never ends, because I saw so many in 50 pages. It was crazy. In future Shay, if I could say one thing to you, it really doesn't end. Jumping to chapter 7, Peyton's POV, page 51, and this is just after Kai gets ambushed by that silencer. I highlighted, and then something is suddenly terribly wrong. He's clutching his head, and I watch his cocky expression crumble into utter agony when a figure steps out from the shadows. I just read all of that. Why am I reading it again? This is when I started noticing that Lauren loves to do little recaps in the next chapter. So then the silencer tries to go after Peyton, and she says, nothing happens, of course, considering I have no power for him to smother. That's how I find out you're an ordinary? I wrote such a lame way for this reveal. I know we get the reveal from Kai, but this one is just so lame. So Kai's ability is that he can pick up on any power, and he immediately doesn't clock one in her. So we already find out that she's an ordinary, but for her to just kind of like throw that comment away, so lame. Like, that's supposed to be such a huge reveal. On the very next page, Peyton is fighting this silencer, and I highlighted, he always takes a step with his left foot before he punches. Okay, consider me impressed. Fine. On page 54, I highlighted 13 years of age. See, Lauren likes to slip in and out of this like posh, like fantasy style of writing. Like, who says the words 13 years of age? It's just inconsistent with the rest of the book. Chapter 9, Kai's POV. Great, my favorite. I highlighted another little quip he made. The silencer and I are starting to sound very, very similar. God, I can't with the little quips. In the same chapter, his voice is filled with awe, his brown eyes wide with wonder. Jax. He looks between Kit and me and a smile spreading across his face. I did it! I'm in the trials! Okay, this is where I noticed there seems to be a lot going on here. I don't think we need Jax's plot. Like, there's already enough happening. We're entertained, girl. I don't need any more. In the next page, another character is introduced, Sadie, who is like one of their friends or something, and Kai asks if she knows who's competing in the trials, and she very conveniently nods, pulling a crinkled flyer from one of her pockets. Right, of course. Like, of course she has this in her pocket. There were little things like this throughout the entire book that totally ripped me out of the story. Oh man, then Lauren writes, my eyes snag on a particular arrangement of letters. Good lord. Or should I say plagues? Chapter 10, Peyton's POV. We are now in the castle. All of the competitors are gathered for the first dinner, and they're explaining what's gonna go down with the trials and like all the extra things, like the interviews and the balls. Peyton makes a comment, how could I forget how showy the trials are? And I literally wrote Hunger Games knockoff. Why are there interviews? Why are there balls? Why is it this big event? Why? Between chapters 10 and 11, we're introduced to this Imperial named Lenny, and he has been assigned to guard Peyton specifically. Peyton notes, he rubs his hand over the back of his neck with a sigh. At this point, we had read that sentence literally 3 times since we met Lenny. The inside of my cheek is sore, the result of incessant biting in attempt to calm my nerves. Just real bad writing. I don't know, it just feels like someone saw a TikTok of someone talking about how they bite their cheek when they're anxious, and she was like, oh, okay, so that's what anxious people do. Oh goody, chapter 12, Kai's POV. He and Peyton are talking about their little run-in and how she saved his life, and they're flirting and blah, 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 blah. And she throws it in his face that an Imperial, one of his men, did this to her. And he says, perhaps I'll relieve him of one of his hands so he never has the opportunity to lay it on a woman again. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. That's hot. Chapter 13, we're in full-on training for the trials, and Peyton and Kai are kind of like competing with each other. They're throwing knives. Kai throws one, and I highlighted a quip that Peyton makes after he throws a knife and says, a beautiful throw. These little remarks kill me. Like, I get what the author is going for, but they cringe me out and they really take me out of the story. Kai then throws a knife at Peyton and she ducks and she like stomps up to him and says, what the hell is wrong with you? I stomp towards Kai, closing the distance between us in a matter of seconds. There's just so many extra words. Okay, chapter 14, we are getting ready for the interviews, which like, why do we need interviews? Why is there a female version of Caesar Flickerman? It feels like Lauren's pulling things from the Hunger Games because she doesn't know how to write this kind of story. Sorry, girl. We get our first use of the phrase, the Silver Savior. She wants to be Katniss so bad. Kai asks her, too stubborn to ask for my help, Gray? No, I say coolly, too strong to need it. His next words are murmured close to my ear. That's what I like to hear. Okay, fine. He smiles, really smiles at her. It's a rare expression for him, one that he only seems to wear when she's around. That expression, one that he only seems to wear when she's around, in regards to like a facial expression or a smile, is one that we have already heard countless times and will hear countless more times in the rest of this book. It's already been overused and it gets like beaten into the ground. I don't know what's happening later, but I highlighted the phrase, a dinner and show. Why does that just feel so weird to me? It's clunky. Like, no one says that. People say dinner and a show. More examples of how weirdly written this book is. Okay, chapter 21, Peyton's POV. We're at the first ball, and she recognizes a servant as one of the boys that she'd actually seen in the loot. The boy from the loot, the boy with the leather, the boy I stole from, the boy with the note addressed to my house. She sees this guy in the loot, she like trips him or he falls or she steals from him or something and realizes that he has a paper in his hand with like her home address written on it. really weird. And then she recognizes him at the ball as a servant of the palace. Why is there another plot point? There is so much going on in this book. Oh god, okay. Then we go into the first trial. They kind of just get dropped in this like forest, and very conveniently there are these people who can like record using their eyes, and that's how they televise the trials to the rest of the world, which okay, great, whatever. What really pissed me off, though, were these, like, really bad poems that Lauren writes to explain to the contestants what's happening in these trials. Basically, in this first trial, they have to steal the armbands of other competitors, and the idea is that you're gonna kill these people to get it. And another Hunger Games knockoff, they get, like, gifts. Like, sponsors can, like, send them gifts in the arena. Gee, I wonder where I've heard that before. So Kai, like, stumbles upon one of these and says, "Then I'm laughing dryly, unable to stop. The absurdity, the sheer impossibility of all of this has me hysterical. Braxton must have picked it up in the forest somewhere and dropped it during our fight. He just like finds this box full of healing ointment." That's sounding oddly familiar. She wants us to be the Hunger Games so bad. This is the dumbest thing. Yeah. Hi, this is Editor Shay. You're gonna see me a couple times in this video. I just want to clarify, my issue isn't that the book is so similar to the Hunger Games with its interviews and the competitors getting gifts and female Caesar Flickerman and whatever. My issue is that there's no reasoning behind it. Like in the Hunger Games, the games represent this huge thing of this like, you know, revolution that happened and like the capital like regaining control, and it's like commentary on our society and how people and things are commodified in this like horrific way. There's no reason behind any of the trials except for like, well, that's just how it is now because we don't like the ordinaries. And again, maybe we find out more in later books, but like I feel like I should know about why all of these things exist in the first book. Okay, that's all. Oh, okay. So then Peyton's like dying, right? And he calls her by her first name for like the first time in the whole book. And he says, "And now I forever want her name on my lips and rolling off my tongue until I'm drunk on the taste of the sound." All right, girl, me too. Page 233. If by fun, do you mean flirty? Because you are certainly... If by fun, do you mean flirty? Because you are certain... If by fun, do you mean flirty? Because you certainly are more of that. Is that even grammatically correct? I mean, you just saw me struggle with reading that sentence like 4 times. Oh my god, don't get me started with the overuse of the word plague. A lot of these romantasy books do this weird thing where they take a word that isn't a curse and use it as like a curse word. So in this book, they say the word plague a lot. And in chapter 31, Kai says, "So after climbing another plague-forsaken pine tree." That is just horrendous. Okay, wait, I also just wanted to clarify. I know I said romantasy. This happens in fantasy books too. Like, I'm reading the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson right now, and he does this a lot where he'll replace, like, God, the word God, like, God damn it, with, like, almighty. Or instead of saying curse words, they'll say storms. But for some reason, when he does it, it just flows a lot better. And I think it's because those words that he chose are so similar to words that we use in our real life, so it's not weird to read them. But when you're reading plagues as a curse, it really like takes you out of it and makes you go like, oh yeah, okay, wait, I'm reading a romantasy book. You know, I don't know, it just doesn't flow. That was the end of the first trial. A lot of bullshit happens in between. You see Kit a little bit. I forgot to mention that in the first ball, the resistance attacks, and that boy that she recognized is part of the resistance. So in between the first and second trials, she like goes back to her house and meets all these resistance people, and they like tell her to use her relationship with Kit to gain access into the castle from the outside. They can plan like a huge uprising or whatever. So in between the first and second trials, she like develops a relationship with Kit and she like tries to get some information out of him. Okay, so back to the first trial. Kai saves her life. He heals her with that weird ointment. They get really close. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens and the trial's over and she gets closer with Kit like the resistance wants her to. And there's another ball. And surprisingly, I didn't highlight anything, but I think it's because I started really getting into the romance. Like it started getting fun. Oh my God. Kai says, "Don't stop," he murmurs. I nearly choke on my laugh. Stop what? That. laughing. Oh my God. Enough. And then she starts freaking out at the ball because she's realizing she likes him and she's a full-blown anxiety attack. And then he like unzips her dress and they have this weird moment and then she runs away again. Then we enter the second trial, which is just so dumb and annoying to read about. All they have to do is get up this mountain and like capture the flag. But of course the idea is they're all gonna make it and they're all gonna fight to the death to get this flag. But at the end of the second trial, Kai kills Ace. I think his power was being able to project images into someone else's mind. So he was kind of torturing them and like really tortured Peyton. So of course, Kai, protecting her, kills him. And he says, funny how killing makes me feel most alive. I feel lighter than I have in days. This is like the first person he's like killed. Like first person he's like brutally murdered. My only regret is I didn't have more time to play with him. If I were a better man, that might have repulsed me. See, like I said at the top, all we do is hear about how much Kai likes to murder and how he's good at it and how it like doesn't bother him. But this is like the only time we really see that. And it's within one of the trials, which makes sense as to why he'd have to kill someone. Like we don't see any of the like brutal murdery guy. Okay, like Lauren Roberts, you want to talk about how this guy's such a ruthless murderer when I've only seen him kill in Peyton's honor, which like obviously makes sense because if he's killing for Peyton or in her honor or to protect her, then we like him more. If he's just ruthlessly killing like the person he claims he is, we wouldn't like him. So it's very convenient that the only times he's that ruthless murderer is to like do it for Peyton, you know? Okay, so the trial's over. They go back to the castle. Peyton's walking around the gardens and she sees Kai and she's like hanging out. They're talking, they're flirting, whatever. God, and then Kai's like talking about his childhood and like all the things he had to go through to like train with his dad. His dad basically tortured him into becoming like an emotionless killing machine, right? To become the future enforcer. And he says, I had to break my bones and then heal them. Or sometimes I'd be sliced open with a sword and have to learn how to stitch my own skin back together. Like, oh my God, why is it so intense? I mean, I get it, you have to paint the picture and stuff, but like, why not show me all of this instead of telling me? Oh, here we go. This is really where things took a huge turn downhill for me. I completely started losing faith in the romance and the story in this book. Okay, so in chapter 48, Kai is having like a really bad nightmare. And chapter 49, we switch back to Peyton's POV, and the first thing she says is, screams, I've never heard agony in such raw form. And I said, like, all the writing is exactly the same. I can only tell who I'm reading about by their surroundings, or by the freaking chapter titles. Like, that phrasing is exactly how Kai talks. So then she runs into his rooms and wakes him up from this insane nightmare he's having, and then of course he's like, no, please stay. And then they like sleep together in the same bed, and then it's back to normal the next morning. He like wakes up and gets her breakfast, and they're back to like their quips and their banter and like bullying each other a little bit. And at this point, I'm over it. And he tries to make a little bit of a move, and it's like becoming more obvious that there's something happening between them. And she goes, I should go, and leaves. This is the point where I started getting really frustrated with this whole will they, won't they thing, because it's been 400 pages and they still won't. Like, figure it out, you guys. So when she wakes him up from the nightmare, he's like freaking out, whatever. And she's like, don't hide from me, not anymore. And then she says, I watch his eyes roam all over me, over my body still pressed beneath his, over my hair messily spread across his pillow, almost as if he's committing me to memory. Girl, don't tell me about what he's doing. Like, you don't know that. Let me just focus on you. What's the point of the dual POV if she's gonna tell me what he's doing and he's gonna tell me what she's doing? Like, what's the point of that? A smile he's designed just for me on page 397. I told you, we keep getting the same text over and over and over. And there's the third ball of the book. They're outside, they're playing thumb war with each other, they're like flirting, and they're like this, look at it, this close from kissing, and then someone interrupts them because the king wants to talk to Kai. Oh my God, I think I like almost threw the book across the room at this point because I was like, are you serious? Are they not gonna kiss? They're not gonna fuck? Hello? I was over there like one of those horny book talk girls, like, Powerless, is it spicy? What chapters? Because I was like, is this gonna happen or is it not gonna happen? Spoilers, it never happens in this book. Don't piss me off. The romance was the only thing I was interested in this book, and I'm not even getting what I want. Don't piss me off. Then, of course, the king's like, you can't be with her, blah, 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 whatever. Then they wake up the next day, and it's the third trial, which is this huge maze, because, of course, there are people in this world that can just grow things, like hedges and whatever. And the king is able to use their power to, like, mix up the maze and shift it and whatever. And the whole idea is they have to get to the center to, like, get the trophy or whatever it is. What made me upset was how many times they kept saying that this was a really clever trial, that the king was really smart and like doing them dirty this year. Like it feels like they're trying to convince me that it's a good idea. Why not just write a good idea? You know? So at around 450 pages, I stopped highlighting because I just needed this to be over. I was over it. I knew they weren't gonna fuck. So I just needed the book to be done. I had to finish it before book club, so I just kind of like locked in and powered through it. So I have no more highlights, but I will freely complain about the rest of this book, okay? This third trial, I think, is definitely one of the better trials. It's interesting. You see Kai like really use his powers. He does the shape-shifting thing against Sadie. He taps into the power of the people who can do the hedges and basically flattens the whole thing. I thought that was pretty cool. It was a fun use of his powers. Peyton works really hard to get to the center. She's like really weak. She fights Blair. I think she actually ends up killing Blair right now, which was like cool. And I like that she was able to take Blair down because Blair was so weak. That was one of the things I did like about this book was everyone's powers like matched their personalities or like their role in the book. So Blair being unable to physically fight and only use her mind, I thought was interesting because that was Peyton's like only in to take her down. And Blair is like such a bitch that she doesn't even like think to develop any of her other skills. So I thought it was cool how Peyton was able to take her down. So this huge thing happens, right? She kills Blair. She gets to the center of the maze. And then, I don't know why, we flip back to Kai's POV. It just like, things like this happen all the time in this book where you flip from one POV to the next in the middle of a really big thing that's happening. And it totally like ripped me out of the book. I don't think that the dual POV was used well in this book. And Kai says, "Gaze never finds mine. No, those blue eyes are fixed on the figure at the center of the circle. Peyton's steps falter, fumbling as though she's back in the bedroom where I taught her how to dance. And she's sprinting towards the criminal who's destined to die." What does that even mean? I know that Lauren is trying to create this sense of mystery and suspense, but it's honestly so annoying. What do you mean the criminal who's destined to die? And of course that means Adina, her best friend. I don't know why Adina was placed in the middle of this trial. Like, why would the king take a civilian and put them in the trials when the whole point of the trials is to like bring honor to their family and the country and like prove that the powerful, the elites, the people with these like awesome powers are supposed to be on top? Why would you take a civilian and just kill them? It would have been more effective, in my opinion, if Adina was killed before the trials, kind of like Cinna being killed right before Katniss goes into the 74th or the 75th Hunger Games. But yeah, then she just dies. Okay, not cool. Like, what a waste of a death. And that was honestly really fucking sad. But then, you know what happens? The Resistance barges in. Somehow, Peyton was successful in stealing the keys off of Kit's person that allow access in and out of the castle. Then the Resistance runs in and just like starts killing people left and right, which makes no sense. Why would the Resistance start killing people? Like, that is like the opposite of what their mission is supposed to be. Of course, it all goes to shit after that. Kai locks in and becomes the enforcer that he is and starts killing people. And this is the first time we really start seeing Kai become like a ruthless murderer. Like, finally, he starts killing Resistance people. Then they all slowly start putting together that Peyton is an ordinary, she has no powers, she's been lying to all of them. Everybody feels betrayed, and then Peyton actually tracks down the king and is going to kill him because she believes that the king is responsible for her dad's murder. But of course, we need one more twist, one more thing to just throw in the pot. Kai is actually the one that murdered Peyton's dad. So she's double betrayed by all of these people, and then she runs away. Kai finds out that Peyton killed his dad, and now he's pissed and feeling really awful. And Kit, oh my god, that poor guy is just devastated. And honestly, I felt bad for him. I kind of liked Kit. Sue me, I like a nice guy. That's pretty much where our story ends. Peyton runs off to escape and heal because she is like in bad shape. So to conclude this whole mess of a video, the best part of this book was the romance and the love triangle. I wish Lauren Roberts put more time and effort into that part of the book. I think it would have made for more of an interesting read. I think the insane amount of world building and setting up for a trilogy could have come later in this trilogy, maybe in the second book. There was just too much going on. I couldn't get invested in any of these characters, and the romance served as more of like a really fun break from all the extra stuff going on rather than like the main focus of this book. I don't know. I don't know. Everyone in my book club gave this 5 stars, and I get it. It was so fun to read when it was fun to read, but when it wasn't fun to read, oh God. it was hard to get through. This book should have been 300 pages instead of over 500. So that was Powerless via my Kindle notes and annotations. Reviewing a book via my notes and annotations was an idea that came to me literally yesterday. I actually had a lot of fun doing this video. I think this is going to be the way that I review and talk about books in the future. So maybe subscribe if you want to stick around to see the next one. But hey, oh, hey, whoa, no pressure. We're just here to have a good time. If you want to see more of me, I have a book v movie series on my channel I'm building right now, so I've got a few out and a few more coming. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me for so long. That's so nice of you. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one, but until then, mahalo nui and ahui ho. Wait, okay, before I go, do yourself a favor and listen to the audiobook of Powerless. The guy who reads Kai's chapters, one of the hottest voices I have ever heard. I love how he says the name Kai. He goes, Kai. Okay, shoots.